Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to the second day of the BioAfrica Convention. I'm hoping that you all enjoyed yesterday. We had a very exciting program, and it is our hope that today is going to be as good as it was yesterday. I also would like to greet our guests for this morning's plenary. Today we have Dr. Lawrence Banks, who is the Director General of the ICGEB, International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, who flew all the way from Trieste, Italy, to join us. As AfricaBio, we are very thankful to Dr. Banks and his team for the support that they've given to the convention over the years. Since the inception of the BioAfrica Convention in 2018, the ICGB has been unwavering their support, and you can see by the number of their staff that has participated in this convention. There are a few programs that they are running, a few workshops that they are running for African scientists and students. So we're very thankful to them, and we'll hear from Dr. Banks on what they have for us this morning. After that, we'll then hear from our Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Minister Thoko Didiza, who is the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. We know she's very busy, and these are the busy times in government and also in our politics, but we are very thankful to the Ministry for allowing us the space in her diary for the Minister to come and be with us this morning. We know she's supported the convention, not only the convention, but the activities of our organization, AfricaBio, so we're thankful to that. But before I call on Dr. Banks to the stage, I would like to give a thanks to a few of our partners and sponsors within the convention. Remember, we can't exist in silo. There are a number of people that have supported this convention that we're at today. Firstly, I want to be thankful to our Department of Science and Innovation, the DSI, who have continued to provide support to the convention over the 4 years of its existence. Especially, I would like to thank the DG, Dr. Philip Njwaka. I'm sure some of you have heard him yesterday, who was leading the plenary session. Dr. Njwaka has been our support. He provided leadership not only to the convention, but to AfricaBio and also the institutions that are under his department, the Technology Innovation Agency, who've also supported us over the years of the convention. So DG, we're very thankful to you and your staff at the DSI. Secondly, I need to thank the city of eThekwini, who is our host city, as we term them. Even during the digital times, they've continued to host us as the BioAfrica Convention. Yesterday, we all had the mayor addressing us and telling us about how biotechnology has impacted some of the activities of the city. That's what we want to see out of this convention. We want to make sure that the talks become action, and the mayor actually gave testimony to that, to say some of the partnerships that have come out of this convention have been implemented by the city. One example of that, which was a partnership between AfricaBio and Invest Durban, where AfricaBio used the farmers within the city to demonstrate biotechnology in agriculture and how farmers can start to adopt such technologies to grow their crops in an efficient manner, but more important, in a healthy manner. So we're thankful to the city for continuing to support the convention over its existence. Also, we know that convention of this nature, BioAfrica and many others within the world, they need support of both government and industry. It can't only be government, it can't only be industry. It's the partnership, the dialogue between government and industry that makes sure that biotechnology and bioeconomies are developed. So I want to thank our sponsors who are coming from industry, who've seen the value behind participating in this convention and making sure that they come and give the best of what they can, but more importantly, bring their technologies out in the open for us as Africans to use them and to convert our thoughts into actions and to change our lives and also to change our people's lives. Especially, I want to thank the following institutions: the Innovation Pharmaceutical Association, South Africa, IPASA, who at the beginning they came with us to form the BioAfrica Convention. I'm sure you will hear later in the evening when we're talking about the Dr. Kondi Sibati Fellowship, who was the CEO of IPASA at that time. And even this year, IPASA will come along with us to make sure that this convention continue to provide guidance on how biotechnology within the continent can change lives and provide good medicines, provide food security. We want to thank BioCity Labs, which is an NPO based in Cape Town, who, as new as they are, but they were able to come on board and say, we see BioAfrica Convention as a platform to talk about bioeconomy in the continent and in the country specifically, and want to join you. So thank you, BioCity. Amgen. Amgen is one of the big pharmaceuticals globally, and they are partnering with us this year, and it is our hope that similar organizations will come on board and bring their know-how, their expertise, and their technologies to be accessible to people, and such industry sponsors, to our knowledge, is what we want to see come on board. So we're thankful to Amgen. And lastly, I want to thank the Mail and Guardian, who is our media sponsor, and we are hoping that this partnership between us and them is going to continue for years. Now, delegates, I would like you to join me then in welcoming Dr. Lawrence Banks to the stage and to the podium to tell us about what ICGEB has, but more importantly, why this partnership of ICGEB and AfricaBio is essential in making sure that Africa is in the forefront of biotech development. Dr. Banks.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. It really is a very great pleasure to be here today. AfricaBio is an amazing conference, and ICGEB is really proud to have been part of this for several years. And I would, before I start, I'd just really like to say a massive thank you to Dr. Msomi and his team, for the invitation to be here, which, as I say, is a great pleasure, but also for putting together this amazing convention. It's a difficult period, but the importance of science and technology is really being highlighted in the course of the pandemic, and I think such gatherings is really fundamental for our ability to respond to this pandemic and anything in the future. So what I'd like to do today is say a little bit about South-South cooperation and technology transfer, and how we believe this can really make a major impact for the development of science and biotechnology, and ultimately reaching populations in Africa that can really benefit from the advances in these areas. So briefly, ICGEB is an international organization. We have 3 research institutes located in Trieste in Italy, New Delhi in India, and Cape Town in South Africa. And we comprise 66 member countries, so we are a global organization. The mandate of the organization is to be a center of excellence for training and research in molecular biology and biotechnology, specifically addressing the needs of our member countries. And that's the key point, that our membership need to tell us exactly what they want from us, and we will respond accordingly. And I like to think of ICGEB as doing science for development. In Africa, we have quite a major footprint. We have 22 member states across the continent, and we're working very closely with a number of other countries who are also looking to join. We have 6 incoming states that have three of which have already joined this last year: Angola, Ethiopia, and Zimbabwe, and additional countries are expressing interest. So our aim here is to really expand what we can do on the African continent. And of course, all of what we do is linked to the SDGs, and I like to think that ICGEB's approach takes a 360-degree approach to this. So we try and cover a wide spectrum of the SDGs and the ultimate outcomes that we're looking to achieve. And what I wanted to do today was to really focus on partnerships, because I think that's what AfricaBio is all about. It's building partnerships across the continent, across the world, to improve the science and the capacity on the African continent. And of course, science is it is about partnerships. You can't, in modern science, you cannot work in isolation. And so while scientists have been very good over many years in building collaborations, we're now looking to use this basis to expand collaborations between different institutes, organizations, countries, to expand what we can do on the African continent. And what I'm going to do to begin with is really just highlight some of the partnerships that we've developed over the last 18 months or so, with a specific view to expanding the access to state-of-the-art technology for scientists across the African continent. And really, I'd like to start with this. Obviously, COVID-19 has had a massive global impact. And what we realized quite early on in the pandemic, in sort of April, May of last year, there was a desperate lack of access to laboratory diagnostics in lower middle income countries. And through that, we entered a fantastic collaboration, a perfect example of a public-private partnership with New England Biolabs and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to begin a project to try and roll out diagnostics specifically tailored to lower middle income countries. And this was really driven by the fact that the regular PCR technology that was available at the time really just could not be accessed in many parts of the world. And there were major issues in various elements of doing diagnostics in lower middle income countries. And what we did was to use a novel technology, which I'll say a little bit more about in a couple of minutes, to trial this diagnostic in clinical settings, specifically in low resource environments. It's no point bringing out a new diagnostic which might work really well in a lab in the USA, but if it doesn't work in the field in Africa, it's not going to be much help. And so we built this collaboration with labs, diagnostic laboratories involving ICGEB and labs in Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Cameroon to basically trial this diagnostic. And it's a lamp test. It's very simple. It's isothermal. The assay can be done in 30 minutes, and it's perfect for settings where there's intermittent electricity supply and so on and so forth. And the bottom result was that this technology turned out to be extremely effective. It can detect the virus up to 30 CT cycles, and so it's very comparable with the regular PCR technology. And the partner laboratories in the 4 original countries were delighted with this. And so we're now expanding this program. We're looking for regulatory authorization for this diagnostic technology. And the idea is now also to expand to additional countries in Africa so that they can also try out in their diagnostic laboratories this technology to see if it can also satisfy their diagnostic requirements. Ultimately, we want to be able to expand to ensure that these products can actually be produced in Africa, because I think this is absolutely fundamental for long-term sustainability. And we're also thinking beyond COVID. You know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. COVID will finish, and so what we're using this network that we're developing to also use it as reference centres for trialling new diagnostics that will be forthcoming in the coming years. Again, focusing on low resource settings on the African continent. And of course, we're always very, very keen to expand our collaboration. So if anybody who is listening to this presentation today would like to know more about this technology and how we would like to expand further on the African continent, then please don't hesitate to contact me. And of course, one of the other elements in all of this is we're building an African network. And so one of the main elements of this is that we will be promoting meetings as we go through this project, mostly hopefully held in Cape Town, where scientists, regulators, epidemiologists, people with an interest in pandemic response will be able to share experiences and plan the way forward for future responses to such similar health crises. Now, moving on, one of the things that we realize that is a major problem in many lower middle income countries, and specifically in least developed countries, is the ability of scientists, young scientists from those countries to access training opportunities in state-of-the-art facilities. These fellowships are normally extremely competitive, and I felt for a long time that young scientists from LDCs were particularly disadvantaged in being able to access some of these fellowship programs. And so what we've done is we've teamed up with the UN Tech Bank and the World Academy of Sciences to develop a fellowship program which is specifically aimed at scientists from least developed countries. And of course, as we know, many of those countries are located on the African continent, and so we're really hopeful that we will get many young scientists from Africa wishing to take part in this program. This is aimed specifically at either PhD students or postdocs, and these fellowships will be able to be taken up in ICGB laboratories in Cape Town, New Delhi, or Trieste. So I think this is a really wonderful opportunity. We are getting quite close to the deadline for the first round of applications, but I would be really grateful if anybody who is listening today could spread the word amongst their communities to ensure that young scientists from LDCs in Africa are aware of this program. Also, as part of this, on the more regulatory aspect, it's very important to be able to ensure that biotechnology and the products of biotechnology can be brought to the populations in the country that really need it, and that obviously requires going through government and relevant regulatory processes. And ICGB has a wonderful expertise in this. It originally had a big partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on regulatory practices for implementation of GMO technology on the African continent. But also as part of this new collaboration now with the UN Tech Bank and TWAS, what we're going to be doing is setting up a series of workshops on regulatory science training, and this will cover a whole range of different areas: risk analysis, containment and confinement, biosafety regulatory frameworks, GMO food safety, and so on and so forth. And these workshops will initially be held online. We hope to be able to go to the field as the pandemic situation improves. But again, these workshops are specifically open for scientists from LDCs. The registration deadline is on 1st of October of this year. And again, I do encourage people to look at the website and to consider taking part in these courses. I think they will be extremely useful for implementing biotechnology in low resource settings on the African continent. We have had a wonderful collaboration for many, many years with the Italian Ministry for Foreign Affairs. They are a major supporter of ICGB, and we are really grateful for all of their support over more than 30 years now. And one of the new activities that they are supporting with ICGB is a specific program, Biotechnet, which is aiming to enhance biotechnology and uptake in biotechnology in the Horn of Africa. And this is a very ambitious program. It will last for 2 to 3 years. And the idea is to promote cooperation and collaboration within the Horn of Africa, and of course also with the ICGB laboratories. This program will include, again, fellowships for training in state-of-the-art biotechnology approaches, and also we'll be providing research grants for laboratories in these countries, so that scientists who come to ICGB, they initiate their research projects, and then they want to return home and take those projects with them. We will be providing funding so they can help establish laboratories and develop their own research and training activities back home. And of course, in all of this, it's very important to engage on the ground, and one of the major elements that we're really looking forward to being able to build upon as we move out of the pandemic is to be able to run training workshops within selected centres in the Horn of Africa on various aspects related to development of biotechnology. Gender equality remains a major issue in many parts of the world. And this is something which is very dear to the heart of ICGB. We want to ensure that women scientists get equal access to all the opportunities that are available, and in particular for developing their own research programs. And again, thanks to the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we've now established a program called WeStar, which is specifically aimed at PhD and postdoctoral fellowships for women scientists coming from Africa. And I'm very happy also to be able to say that we're in very late stage discussions also with the Department of Science and Innovation of South Africa in establishing a similar program, so that we can really expand what we can do for women scientists on the African continent. And these fellowships can all be taken up within research laboratories, again within Trieste, New Delhi, and in Cape Town. So again, we're really very excited by this program. And really, mirroring what I just said about LDCs and the lack of opportunities for young scientists from least developed countries, it's even more polarized when you think about women from those countries. And so for that reason, we've entered into a really great collaboration with the UN Office on South-South Cooperation, and they are also providing support for fellowships for women scientists from LDCs to go to the labs in New Delhi and Cape Town. So this is a classic example of South-South cooperation in action. And again, just to re-emphasize, these fellowships, many of the LDCs are in Africa, so African women scientists are really encouraged to apply. The deadline for this is the end of September, and again, if anybody has colleagues or partners who they feel may be interested in this program or can spread the word for us, we will be extremely grateful. Finally, as another, I think, a wonderful example of collaboration which is going to have a major impact on the African continent, is work that's been done largely by Dennis Ndolo at the ICGB Cape Town component in a project which is supported by the Standard and STDF development facility for enhancing trade through regulatory harmonization based on pesticide residue mitigation, especially in late harvest crops. And the whole idea there is to be able to promote the use of biopesticides, which, as we all know, are environmentally much more friendly than the regular pesticide use. And this is a cooperation with a whole variety of partners, but it involves the whole of the SADC region. So again, a great example of how partners can come together to really make an impact on how technology can be developed, and also ultimately in this case to have a direct impact on trade, which I think is particularly important. So those are some of the partnerships. We obviously need to make sure that the fruits of biotechnology actually get to the people who need it within the countries across the African continent. And for this reason, ICGEB has been very active for a number of years now in biotechnology development and technology transfer. So directly transferring technologies to small companies most often in our member countries on various technologies for the production of mostly biosimilars. I'm not going to go into any details on what the various products are that we produce, but just to say that the biosimilar market really allows you to produce therapeutics such as, for example, insulin, at prices which are orders of magnitude cheaper than what are available from the regular international producers. And so what we're providing here is a list of therapeutics that we already have available. We produce them to a level that meets the standards of the FDA or the European Pharmacopoeia, and we can transfer those technologies directly to partners in our member countries in Africa for production for Africa. And I think that is a very important point. We don't want here to generate companies that are major global leaders wanting to make huge profits. What we want to be able to do is to help small companies be producers at prices which can be affordable by people on the African continent. And I think this is a very important point when we go forward and we look at establishing production facilities in Africa, that those facilities have to be targeted to the populations of the African continent. We're very grateful here to the Regione Friuli Venezia Giulia, which is the region of Italy in which the ICGEB Trieste labs are located. They have been very generous in supporting the development of new pharma-compliant laboratories for biosimilar production and development. And these facilities are not just for us to be able to produce these products. It's for people to be able to come to the ICGEB and to learn the processes and technologies that are required for the production of these biosimilars. And of course, the last year has been a challenge. Movement, training activities has been greatly restricted. And so what we've launched are a video series where certain of these products, we've gone through the whole process for the production of various biosimilars in very detailed videos which are available online on the ICGEB website. And whilst this is not the equivalent of actually working in the laboratories, it allows our partners and people who are potentially interested in producing these products to actually gain a full understanding of what is involved and what the requirements will be for them to take up these technologies. And the person who's been heading all of this is Dr. Natasha Skoko. She's very active, and her team are very active at this year's AfricaBio conference. They are running a series of training workshops all along the lines of biosimilar production and quality control processes and so on and so forth. But just to show you that we're working on a global scale here, this is another activity that she is also involved in India, where again there's also a great interest in biosimilar production, which she's taking part in at the end of this month. We don't just work with biologics. We're also obviously very interested in agriculture, and one of my colleagues, Vittorio Venturi, is also presenting this morning at BioAfrica with colleagues also from Cape Town, is looking at how we can develop improved biofertilizers. And this is all based on microbiome work. So basically looking at the plant microbiomes, the bacterial communities that grow on plant roots, and isolating communities of bacteria which can be plant beneficial, either in preventing pathogen and pathogenic disease, or also in promoting plant growth as a biofertilizer. And the key point about these projects is that it all involves partners and collaboration with scientists in our member countries, because you have to work with the crops in the field, you have to work in the specific geographical location, and you identify bacterial communities that will work in that specific location. And ultimately what we're hoping to do through this work, obviously some of it is already being taken up by companies who are interested in developing biofertilizers, but these processes can be incredibly cheap, and we want these products to be able to reach small farms in Africa that can really significantly enhance crop production and yields in those particularly low resource settings. And what I'm really pleased about the whole of this is that it's also bringing together some wonderful research teams working in Trieste, New Delhi and Cape Town, all working on plant microbiome related activities and building a network which will be incredibly powerful for our member countries, particularly in Africa, on looking at microbial communities that can be really beneficial to a variety of different crops in different parts of the African continent. Finally, I'm going to finish up with something that is really very close to our hearts, and that is making sure that science and the joy of science can be transmitted to the next generation of scientists, school children, high school children, and even early stages of university, and of course the general public. We have as scientists a real commitment that we have to be able to transmit information about science in a clear and simple manner, and to try and debunk a lot of the mythologies that are floating around on social media about various aspects related to science. Because I think if we want to really implement and get forward the fruits of science to populations, they actually really also need to understand what it entails, what is real, what is wrong, and so they feel comfortable with using the fruits of scientific advance, whether that's what they eat or whether it's the vaccines that they take. And so we work very closely with schools across all of our constituency. This is some examples of work that we've been doing in and around Cape Town, with basically science education and giving young children access to research laboratories and what it's like to be in a lab and how exciting science can be. Obviously, maintaining strong international seminar programs is something that ICGEB is very keen to do. It's been a major challenge this last year, but in certain ways the pandemic has had some advantages. We have all come to terms with Zoom. We can all present seminars and lectures from remote, and so we have a great international seminar program which is now being reactivated. Much of it, as I say, is by remote. It doesn't replace what you get from face-to-face contact, but nonetheless, it's extremely valuable. And for instance, we had a great seminar from Stephen Runo on Africa Day from the Cape Town component. And what I'm coming to is to say that basically all these seminars, they're all recorded and they're available as podcasts on the ICGEB website. As you can see from this, we have a huge collection which is available to scientists throughout the world. And what I would really emphasize to anyone who's listening today who may be involved in teaching and running undergraduate courses, please look at this website. Look at the seminars that we provide. They're all up to date. They're from great scientists from all over the world. And they are wonderful teaching tools for reaching out to your undergraduate students to show them what state-of-the-art science and what the world leaders in the field, how they present their science and make the whole area exciting, and also obviously with all the information that goes with it about specific aspects related to molecular biology, cell biology, and so on and so forth. And of course, we are very keen reaching out to young people with getting an interest in science and being excited in what you can do in a really low resource setting without having to resort to expensive pieces of equipment. And these are foldscopes that we use in our teaching workshops. They're paper folding microscopes. They cost about $1, and they're fantastic for school children to really be able to go out into the garden and see what they can find, and really they're a really wonderful teaching tool. And then finally, the lay public. We have been aware for a long time that we need to do more to make sure that science can be made understandable and it can reach a wider audience as possible. And we have developed this through the Science and City program, which basically covers hot topics in science in front of an audience with moderators from national television and obviously world leaders from various scientific disciplines. And this is just to give you some of the topics that we've recently covered, are planning to cover in the future. But what I'm coming to is that we're really delighted to be able to be cooperating and collaborating with BioAfrica in setting up such a series of conferences and activities throughout South Africa. We're hoping to start in Cape Town in February of next year, and the idea is to move this around South Africa through to Durban, Johannesburg and Pretoria. And obviously, if anybody is interested in similar activities in other countries in Africa, we would be delighted to explore with you how we can set up these types of events, which I think are really very exciting and very interesting for the lay public. And so with that, I'll come to an end. Really what we're in the business is doing science for development, and I'm going to leave my email here. If anybody has any questions at any time, I'm always available, and I'd be delighted to hear from you if there's anything that I've presented that anyone would like to follow up on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Banks, for that very interesting presentation. I think at the beginning of your speech, you mentioned that partnerships are very important in the space of bioeconomy. And as AfricaBio, the partnership that we have between ourselves and ICGEB has proven very fruitful. An example of that is that over the years, we've hosted a number of workshops and trainings and courses before and after the convention for African students, African entrepreneurs and SMMEs. And it is our hope that the call that you made for students and postdocs and postgrads to apply for these opportunities gets heard by all the African students, because without the knowledge that we can get from some of these very advanced laboratories, our science is not going to grow. So thank you for that, Dr. Banks. But I think also to add to that, yesterday we had a very good discussion on the required human capital that we need in the continent to advance innovation. Today we'll be talking about the same issue of human capital development to advance manufacturing. And I think such courses and such training programs that are offered by the ICGEB, it's a start for such collaborations that we need to grab with all of our hands. So thank you for that, Dr. Banks and your team at ICGEB. Now, before I call on the minister, I'm hoping that I'll get an indication that she is here. I just need to give our delegates a sneak preview of what is going to happen throughout the day. We have a series of discussions and topics, on the very same issues of partnerships, intellectual property rights, human capital development, which our hope is that we'll make use of those. But also, and especially, we have an ICGEB training course that starts at 12:10, and it is our hope that all the African students that are listening to the convention will attend those, whether they listen to it directly via the convention or through the platform that we have, which is YouTube or Facebook, because without, again, as I said, without the knowledge that we can get through partnerships like the ICGEB, we don't want to only confine our knowledge within the continent. Now, I see that the Honorable Minister has joined. As I said earlier on, our keynote address this morning is from the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Thoko Didiza. We all know she's been in the cabinet, she's been within the forefront of delivery way back from 1994 in the cabinet of Nelson Mandela, President Mandela, and she now leads our country in getting forward with agriculture, making sure that the land we have is fruitful, produces for our people, but more importantly, is used appropriately. So I will now call on our Minister, Honorable Minister Thoko Didiza, to please address us. And welcome, Minister, to BioAfrica Convention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ntutela. Dr. Lawrence Banks, Director General of ICGEB, distinguished guests on the platform, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning once again. Apologies that we have not been able to start exactly on time due to the air connection. I am honored to partake in this important annual event on scientific exchange pertaining to the role of technology and innovation in addressing societal change. We meet under the most difficult time in humanity's recent memory due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The devastating impact of the pandemic to the global community is a reminder of our inpreparedness as a society to handle major calamities. Worldwide, at the onset of COVID-19, we experienced changes in terms of disease control, food security concerns, and closures of borders as means of containing the disease, among others. Many economies in Africa further suffered major setbacks when it comes to issues of food security, particularly those that are dependent on imports. These setbacks have eroded the major gains that were made towards addressing poverty as a continent. It has also impacted on our capacity to address issues of inequality and unemployment as contained in the UN Sustainable Agenda 2030, Agenda 2063 of the AU, and our respective national development agenda in the continent. The plight of our people is at stake as the majority of our society have fallen below the poverty line. It is important that urgent interventions national and household food security is of paramount importance to our country and to our continent and globally. The Bio-Africa Convention comes shortly before the 2021 UN Food System Summit. The summit is expected to launch bold new actions to deliver progress on all 20 sustainable development goals, each of which relies to some degree on healthier, more sustainable and equitable food systems. The ministers responsible for agriculture, food security, livestock, fisheries, and aquaculture convened a meeting
What a disaster.
where in our continent to agree on the agricultural positions from agriculture, rural development, water, and environment. In order to ensure that national and global food systems are equal to the enviable task of providing food for all, technology and innovation are perhaps the main options at our disposal. I'm therefore very grateful that this year's Bio-Africa Digital Convention edition has prioritized, among other things, food security and safety in its agricultural track. Honorable Program Director and members, it is quite fitting that the theme for this year's convention is, I quote, advancing Africa's biomanufacturing value chains through innovation, close quote. Let me congratulate you and your team for casting the net wide in coming up with a program that addresses all pertinent issues to drive social and economic development through science and innovation in our beloved country. I'm specifically impressed with the topics that will be guiding the discussions in the agricultural tracks, namely food and nutrition value chains for improved health, smallholder agriculture towards household and national food security, and technological innovations for resilience agriculture. Program Director, as I indicated earlier, that we have had our own local dialogues at provincial and national level in preparation of the upcoming UN Summit on Food Systems. One of the issues that our dialogue discussed related to how we can strengthen agricultural research as part of strengthening our food systems. And I hope as part of the deliberations, we would also be looking at those issues when we look at technological innovations for resilient agriculture. Secondly, the dialogues also looked at the challenges of climate change, which poses major challenges for food producers. One of the issues that we were deliberating in those dialogues was how can we develop climate-smart technologies to support agriculture, particularly smallholder farmers. The other area that was discussed, which I hope will benefit from the discussion of this convention today, is how do we strengthen local food systems, particularly as a bedrock for addressing food insecurity and poverty at household level. One of the important things was how do we ensure that our innovation, no matter what they are, can actually respond and be tailor-made to support smallholder farmers, even in the most remote rural areas of our country and globally. One of the things that we are doing currently as the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is to actually develop an agriculture, agribusiness process master plan. As part of this plan, we want to promote local and specifically district-level agricultural production and manufacturing. As a country, we note that we have a unique competitive advantage in some of the horticulture and livestock commodities, which we should continue to exploit for the benefit of our society and the continent at large. I'm quite concerned, however, that the multitude of opportunities availed by the fourth industrial revolution might not be realized if we do not make a concerted effort to bridge the growing digital divide between the rich and the poor, especially the rural poor, who comprise mainly of women and young people. The report of the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, released in 2020, argues that the combination of biotechnology with agroinformatics enabled by precision data has the power to improve seed and plant resilience, particularly given climate variability. The digital divide is still evident, and the socio-economic consequence of the current COVID crisis have further depressed the capacity to innovate, widening the gap between high-income farmers and low-income ones in the country, especially our smallholder sector. Through the ARC, which is the Agricultural Research Council, the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development support farmers at different levels of economic development to leverage the necessary investment and build the required capacity for a smooth transformation towards the 4IR, making digitization a true enabler of prosperity and ensuring that no one is left behind. The Agricultural Research Council is currently resourcing a drone platform using unmanned aerial vehicles to collect information with unprecedented high accuracy. UAVs are used to monitor crops and model biophysical parameters using machine learning and artificial intelligence tools. Another example entails the animal improvement innovation to smallholder livestock farmers, which is known as KYD, to enhance the quality of their breeding stock, which will in turn allow them to actively participate in formal agricultural value chains. Furthermore, in the livestock industry, through global and industry partnerships, we're working on the livestock identification and traceability system, which will revolutionize the red meat industry in our country. The Department of Agriculture, as we all know, as part of the government system, has been identified as one of those key departments and sectors that must play a part in the economic recovery plan. I'm glad that my department is aggressively implementing the economic recovery plan, particularly looking at issues of food security and agribusiness in general. This is aimed at ensuring that we can support those smallholder farmers to remain in action and be able to employ people, as we know the challenges of unemployment that we face. But at the same time, how do we ensure that we expand production areas so that we can grow agricultural economy in our country? I would have not done justice if I did not talk about the emerging threat to our sector posed by global warming and climate change. The high frequency of droughts, new pests and diseases, to mention by a few, are a cause for concern. Our aspiration to make food available to all will be a pipe dream if we do not embrace technology and innovation in managing these new threats. We're committed to the use of climate-smart agricultural practices to mitigate the impact of climate change. We're relying on our scientific community to continue to innovate in the area of climate change in order to enhance the resilience of the agricultural sector. Amid national and global challenges of global warming and climate change, new re-emerging diseases leading to pandemics and a receding economy, agriculture and many other sectors will benefit from technological innovation that will address production and other constraints along the value chain. One of the challenges that we seemingly have been facing as a country since 2019 to date in the areas of Limpopo as well as areas of Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal is around foot and mouth. One of the diseases that we've been able to manage very well over time, but it seems continuously now emerging and popping up in some of the areas and therefore affecting our agricultural industry. We've seen the locust in the Northern Cape, again, an area where we've been controlling starting to spread to other regions of our country. These are just but some indication of the challenges that we need to address if we're to protect our food systems. Again, what can science assist in the agricultural sector to make sure that we remain food secure? South Africa has joined the world in embracing the recent and growing advantages in the omics technology. And the country has invested in both the infrastructure and human capacity to drive adoption of genomics. phenomics, and other biotechnologies to improve production and enhance resilience of agriculture. Such technologies are being used to tap into the biodiversity research, focusing on improvement and development of indigenous animal breeds and plant varieties. The work that is done by science councils, such as the Agricultural Research Council and higher education institutions on indigenous crops, such as Bambara groundnuts, Amadumbe yams, the cowpeas and amaranth, imifino, as well as local breeds of cattle, goat, and chickens, is promoting the use of indigenous genetics resources to sustainably broaden the food base and promote access to nutritious and healthy food. Chairperson, genomics and many other technological innovations have found routine application to improve production, mitigate and adapt to the effects of global warming and climate change, as well as in forecasting, diagnosing, surveilling, and controlling of new and emerging diseases and pathogens. While these technologies have become routine in other sectors, the technology divide has seen many communities being left behind, particularly in our rural communities in our continent and many developing countries. There is a need to increase efforts to bridge this divide and make technologies accessible even to poor and marginalized communities. Investing in local capacity is one way to ensure the technological innovations are tailor-made and packaged in such a way as to make them more accessible to local communities. As I was listening in the early presentation by Dr. Lawrence Banks, it was very important to hear the work that ICGEB is doing in terms of building capacity and exposing young people on the benefits of science. And I'm sure such partnerships working with BioAfrica will enable us to build majority of people who can actually utilize science, but also be able to be innovators in their own right. I would not have done justice if I were not going to congratulate the work that BioAfrica has done in actually promoting as well as supporting women scientists, particularly as we're celebrating Women's Month. This is an important step in the right direction to make sure that we actually build a pool of both men and women in the science field that can respond in addressing the challenges that our country and our globe face today and in the coming years. I'd therefore like to wish all of you a very successful convention as you continue with your deliberations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Didiza, for that very interesting speech. And we again apologize for the start, but as you spoke, there's one thing that the minister raised, which is we need to, as we develop these technologies, we need to bridge the divide between the innovators, these high-tech, and what people need on the ground, small-scale farmers, emergent farmers. And I think your concern, Minister, has to be our response by the actions that we take, and correctly so. Our partnerships with the likes of the ICGEB, the Technology Innovation Agency, the ARC, we have to make sure that our people on the ground, the farmers, the emergent farmers, the rural communities, they get access to these technologies, they understand what they mean, but more importantly also, these technologies are used by them to better their lives. So thank you for that, Minister, and we're very thankful as BioAfrica for you to spare your time for us. We know you're busy, and we don't take that very lightly. Thank you, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the last speaker of our session. There are not going to be any questions to the plenaries. The sessions will resume again at 11 o'clock and through the 4 parallel sessions. I then take this opportunity to invite you to attend all of those 4 sessions, as you may know in the program. but also to invite you to the launch of the BioCity laboratories, the BioCity labs at 11 o'clock, the ICGB training at 12 till 2 o'clock, and the Technology Innovation Academy from 2 o'clock till 3:30. Till we meet again, have a good morning. Bye-bye.